All right, so yes, I am on my DJI mic for now because the lighting right now is very dark. And if I would have had you guys this way, it would have been absolutely terrible and honestly a freaking mess. So we're back on DJI mic just for this angle. So stay with me. That look good? Cool. So Apple just dropped this Creator Studio, and to be honest, I think the point of this whole entire thing was to kind of not combat Adobe, but have their own creator space, just like Adobe have it. I think they know that there's a clear empty space where they can fill themselves in. And honestly, I truly do agree, because within the creative space, there's not a lot of things that we kind of go to. Of course, there's a bunch of editing tools and different AI tools that we do use, and it's very understandable. But for example, there are people that use Final Cut Pro, and that's a separate thing where you just have to kind of just pay for it and that's it. But now what Apple is doing what Adobe has been doing for years, and that's creating a subscription service basically. So this is just Apple's new suite designed for creators. Let's focus on the short form and the long form, and just any type of creation you have in mind. But honestly, let's be honest, this is more so for the creators like ourselves, right? And I'm all for competition, but let's go ahead and just get straight into the video and let's talk about it, right? So first thing first, I have never used the actual Apple Suite Creator Studio. So disclaimer, this is not kind of like a review, this is just more so a discussion about the Apple Suite Creator Studio. One thing I have done, I have used iMovie and I've used Final Cut Pro before in my life, and I've used it more so for my older videos. And I have one of my older videos that I have still up here whenever I was back when I had to be like 18, 19 years old. That was created with Final Cut Pro, and that was me graduating from iMovie. And honestly, it was good. It was a really good tool back then, but at the time it didn't feel like it didn't compare really well to Adobe, and that's okay, right? It was really good for what it is, basically. But now I use Adobe. I use everything Adobe. Whenever it comes to Adobe, I use After Effects, Premiere Pro, Adobe Lightroom. I have all the services that I do use within Adobe, and I think they're actually really good. There's one thing that I feel like what makes Adobe different, everything within the Apple Suite, within Final Cut Pro, iMovie, and everything else they have, they're very user friendly. So one thing I did remember whenever I used to use Final Cut Pro is that it was really easy to use. It did not take me long to actually understand editing, and it was, like I said, it was very simple. And whenever I came to Adobe, not a learning curve, but kind of just like you realize there's so many different buttons and stuff. And now I know that they have a lot of the AI stuff, and I don't even know, I don't even want to get into the AI stuff because I've never used it, but I have done my research, and people has been, very, it's AI, right? It's hit or miss. It's always going to be hit and miss, but it definitely helps you out in the long run. But honestly, I think I said this before I think I said this before in a different video before, but the whole point of this whole entire thing is to kind of keep everybody within the Apple ecosystem. Like I said, they really strongly push that, and it makes sense, because imagine having all these different services, and it's bringing everything together. It makes your life easier, it makes your life simpler, it just makes everything better just in general. It's crazy that literally Apple said, no, you're not having this creative space. We're going to get into this and we're going to be battling this out. I just love it, honestly, because like I said, they know where the niche is at. The niche is for people to start out, because for some people, they will never do stuff like this. And let me clarify this, right? Getting into Adobe, right? When people ask me, hey, what platform do you use? I tell them I use Adobe, and then they will say, how the heck do you use Adobe? Like, is there a class for it, whatever? And I always tell them, no, like YouTube University usually kind of teaches you everything you need to know. You don't need to go to a class for that. And there are people who go to colleges for that, which makes sense, right? But no, YouTube University teach me everything I needed to know. It's a learning curve. It truly is, because like I said, Adobe is not simplistic at all. The UI is not simplistic. It's not easy to cut and crop, and it's not easy, right? You would truly have to understand how the system or the GUI works, and like I said, very understandable for people who cannot get over that curve. But I know one thing for iMovie and Final Cut Pro, that's where it gets easy for people. Whenever I first got into the space, iMovie, Final Cut Pro, those things were so easy to use. I would not use Adobe because of the fact that it was very complicated, and at the same time, I didn't want to pay for subscription, so it was kind of easier. I won't get into that, but Like I said, Final Cut Pro was so much easier to use. So one thing I know that they're targeting is more so for the entry to mid-level creators, right? Because you're not going to learn Adobe. You're not going to get into, you know, those type of things just yet, right? You're not going to get the most high value camera. You're not going to get that type of stuff. You're always going to get the low to medium level to actually understand the fundamentals, the basis of it all, right? And also, this is also another thing. You're going to be using your iCloud still. So like, for example, whenever you do create videos on Final Cut Pro iMovie, you can just send that straight to the cloud, right? With Adobe, it's a little bit different. It depends what cloud service you do have that you can use. But like I said, you're not inside an ecosystem. You're just within the Adobe suite. But imagine you get the Creator Studio, whatever they calling it. Get that, have your phone, have everything, and it just kind of just keeps you in a loop, right? It's very smart, Apple, not gonna lie, very smart. And like I said, they know where that niche is within that creator space, and that's the entry level creators. But I mean, let's be honest. Adobe will still dominate in some areas, because at the end of the day, whenever you get to a certain point, you're gonna have to somehow get to Adobe, and that just means that if you're want a specific style of editing, you're gonna have to go to Adobe, because of course, right, you have After Effects and you have all these other different tools that Apple does not have yet. Even Final Cut Pro does not have yet. And like I said, Final Cut Pro, you can do a lot of things on that. Like I said, they're gonna get there. I don't know when. This is Apple we're talking about. They will get there, and that's the scary part, right? But you know, for now, they're more so for the creative, the entry level to mid-level creators. But on the bright side of things, this just means that everything will be a whole lot cheaper for just creators, right? It will kind of shorten that barrier of entry, or if that's how you say it. But basically, the barrier of entry is not going to be hard, right? The learning curve to edit your videos, to, you know, do certain things, is not going to be hard anymore, right? And that's the point of this whole entire Creator Studio, is for the entry level creators. And honestly, I think more so the iPhone, people who use their iPhones, they're going to be benefiting from this the most, because like I said, you're still part of that ecosystem. But honestly, I mean, it's like one of those things where, like, if you are already a part of Adobe and you want to start saving some money, this right here might be honestly the wave. This makes 100% sense for people to do. But if you're used to Adobe and you just love the whole entire the hardware itself and how it you know, is able to do certain things at a high caliber level compared to Final Cut Pro iMovie, stay with Adobe, right? And then at the same time, we also have to remember, you have to have a MacBook to actually use this creator space. And yeah, I don't have a MacBook, so I'm not going nowhere. Actually, I do, but I don't use it for editing, or I don't use it at all, because I'm actually wanting a new one. But that's a whole other story itself. But to all my people who are watching this video, would you switch to Apple Creator Studio, if that's what it's called? I can't remember what it actually is called, but I just know it's Apple Creator Studio. But would you switch to it? Have you already did some digging into it and thought about it? Go ahead and drop a comment below. Tell me guys what you think, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.